Welcome to the lighter side of the spectrum, the podcast that celebrates the multiple hats we wear and the juggling acts we perform in life. Whether you're parenting kids and teens on the autism spectrum, navigating the ever-evolving healthcare industry, or building a more inclusive and impactful world, this is your space to find connection, inspiration, and growth. Together, we'll share stories, tackle challenges, and explore how innovation and inclusion create better outcomes for everyone. Because no matter the spectrum, there's always a lighter side. Now here's your host, David Kaufer.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to Lighter Side of the Spectrum. I have a question for you. Have you ever found yourself wondering where the line is between advocacy and entitlement? If you've ever fought for your child to be included, accommodated, or even just seen, you know it's not always clear. Today, we're going to dig into that question, among others, with a guest who brings honesty, experience, and heart. And welcome to the show. And this is a show where we try to talk about real families, real advocacy, the beauty and complexity, raising kids who don't fit inside the proverbial typical box. And today I'm joined by Shannon Striner, mom, blogger, and fierce advocate, underline fierce, I'll say. Shannon writes at This Life We Got, a great blog inspired by her daughter, Sienna, who has Down syndrome. As well as her older daughter, Haley, whose innocent question sparked a reflection that turned into one of the most honest posts I've read in a long time. And that post is called The Thin Line Between Advocacy and Entitlement in Parenting. And if, as I said, if you're raising or supporting a child with a disability, I promise you'll see yourself in it somewhere. So with all that, Shannon, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I am so excited to be here.
Yeah, well, I'm excited to have you here. And, I was thinking about this as I was preparing for the show. I'm not sure exactly where I saw you. We've crossed paths on Facebook, somewhere in one of our disability community groups. But, I just love the passion that you bring and the clear-headedness too. Like I said, I think it's important to have both. When you're fighting for your kids, you don't always see that. So I want to talk about advocacy first. I mean, and kind of like talk about your journey into that. Is that something that it just came naturally, or has it been something that has built over time?
It definitely did not come naturally at first. But my daughter, Sienna, is 9 years old. She's in third grade now. In the beginning, we had a birth diagnosis, so we didn't know that she had Down syndrome until the day of her delivery. So we weren't quite prepared for that. And it took a little bit of time to get used to it. And as the journey goes on, early intervention in the beginning, up until 3 years old, those therapists are coming in your home. You feel so supported. And then I have noticed that each step of this journey as your kids get older gets much harder and the support kind of fades a little bit. And now we're at the elementary school age, and finding a school for Sienna hardened me quite a bit. We went through 3 schools before we found the best environment for her. And it's our neighborhood public school. I went to Catholic school and had never gone to public school. We live in Pittsburgh. It's the city school district. And my oldest daughter, Haley, goes to Catholic school. So Catholic school was all I had ever known. I grew up in Philly. So I hadn't really been exposed to a lot. And once Sienna got in this neighborhood school, I really my eyes were completely open to how many kids were struggling, how many kids needed to be supported, all the work that the teachers were doing. And I know you've probably been following, but they've been trying to close her school.
Yeah, and I saw that.
It's so frustrating. And her school, it's majority minority, majority low income. And in spite of that, they have some of the highest PSSA scores in the district. She goes to such a diverse school, such a diverse environment, and these kids are
which is great.
Amazing.
That's
Oh,
great, right? Like, I think that's so healthy. That's so, I mean, that's
it
awesome.
it is literally the real life Abbott Elementary. Like, it really is just
That's
like
great.
that. If you've ever watched that, it really
Yes.
is. They just go above and beyond. But as you know, with what's going on politically right now, it's really hard financially for these districts to be able to provide everything they need for these kids. So the school board right now, they haven't officially voted. They're supposed to vote in November, but it's looking like they're most likely going to close her school and 8 others. Um, and just parents and advocates have been fighting and asking them to listen because there are different solutions if you think outside the box. But I just at this point don't know what's going to happen. But through this process is where I would say my advocacy at points turned into female rage. And I
Sure,
decided
sure.
to channel it into my blog and writing. My blog started as a way for me to process everything we were going through.
Yeah.
And as I wrote, moms were reaching out to me, they were connecting with me, and they were finding inspiration in my words and feeling supported. And I loved that. So it was helping me process the journey and also helping other moms. So and I love to write. I always have. And I have found there are so many moments on this journey that are inspiring that like I will stop and grab my phone and put something in my notes, like an idea just to write something like this, the entitlement versus advocacy conversation.
Mm.
Um, so like I said, my oldest daughter, Haley, goes to Catholic school. Um, the juxtaposition between those two worlds is sometimes challenging for me now. I really have become a huge public school advocate. We started out trying to make private school work for Sienna, and I definitely realized at that point how important it is to have a legally binding document, an
Mhm.
IEP, and private schools do not have to provide that. So Haley
You
lives in a
Yeah, I was
different
gonna say
world.
you just kind of led into that question, I think, which is I think really interesting. Talk about the difference between, because I think there's the assumption among some that the private school is the best avenue for kids with disabilities or different situations.
Yes. So that was not my experience at all. And this was something that was marketed as a program for students with disabilities. And what I quickly realized is there were a lot of walls up, and I wasn't getting answers about questions I had. For instance, I was told in the beginning she would eventually go from half days to full days. They said her stamina needed to build up, which at the time I thought I agreed with that
Sure.
sentiment.
Yeah.
She also has feeding challenges. She has dysphagia, so her liquids need to be thickened and her food needs to be cut up. So um, they didn't provide an aide for her. They had classroom aides. So I was at the time trying to get a home health aide through insurance. That was a whole other, I mean, I got approved via
Right.
insurance, but finding someone proved to
Finding
be
someone, right.
impossible. And at that point, the school, it was like October. And I said, I think her stamina is built up. I think she wants to stay for the day. And I just kept getting pushback. And they eventually just said, until you get a home health aide in here, we don't feel comfortable. I said, I offered to give them CPR training and pay for it. I offered to sit with her at lunch. It was
Wow.
all shut down, all
You
shut
you
down.
you you offered to sit with her. I mean, you even offered to provide on-site
Yep.
support.
Yep. Absolutely. And it was all shut down. So,
Wow.
um, yeah. And that was just one thing. And this was the final straw for me. I had started researching reading curriculums that worked specifically for students with Down syndrome. And I had started to homeschool her, and her old preschool was letting me use a room in the afternoons, and they let her do a program called Lunch Bunch. So she would do that. I would set up like our materials, and then she would come in and we would it was an interesting year that year. I would
It
teach her.
sounds like.
Yes. But I had like all this research about ways that kids with Down syndrome can learn via phonics. And they had gone straight to this reading curriculum that was all based on word memorization, which like the research right now shows that that is absolutely like the last resort you do. So I was sending them research. I said, I bought the curriculum. I will share it with you. And I just got pushed back again and again and again. And every time I came to school, she was in the separate classroom. And as time went on, I was like, okay, this is a glorified daycare. Like that's what this is. Like
Yeah.
you're not listening to me about research. You don't believe in her. It's very clear that you don't. The only thing that was keeping me there was the therapist that they contracted with were fantastic. So she was getting really great therapy while she was there. And the kids were lovely. And I mean, when she was in the classroom included, but I still to this day don't know um, where she was all day. And I refused to sign. They didn't call it an IEP, but I refused to sign it because we were going back and forth over so many things and disagreed. And it didn't matter, they just kept going and they didn't need my signature on an IEP. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. I have to get her in a public school because I
She has
can't fight the
rights.
system. Yes, exactly.
Right. How long did this go on, Shannon? How long did you try the private school route for Sienna?
This was all of kindergarten. So it was
All
an
of
entire
kindergarten.
year. Yep.
Okay.
And then I had called advocates and someone told me about something called dual enrollment, where we could enroll her in public school and private school simultaneously. And it was at that point that I had tried to make a magnet school within our district work and that like previously for our first IEP meeting. And then they couldn't provide a PCA. And then I got scared to death and I pivoted to Catholic school at that point because I was terrified because I had never been in public school
Yeah.
environments.
I mean, it's what you knew. Right. I mean, that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah. So, it's so hard sending your nonverbal kindergartner off and just trusting people. So I went back to the
Oh
safe
my God.
space.
Yeah.
And then it was just like, okay, if we're going to make public school work, we have to make this neighborhood school work. And I had not gone. It was COVID. So they weren't doing tours the year before, but this time they were. I actually left Sienna's, like the IEP meeting. I had a breakdown in the car and cried. And then I called the principal at this school and I said, can I come for a tour? And I just laid it all out. I was an emotional mess and he could not have been kinder. Like they wanted Sienna. They had 4 learning support teachers. One of the teachers I met, he was our Christmas tree guy. So right away I knew him and I was excited to see him. And I started talking to him about the curriculum that I was using with her. He knew what it was. He started giving me materials for homeschooling her. And it just became clear like, this is a great environment. Like, my privilege and my fear is holding me back and it's holding Sienna back. And I had to own that. I had to really do some reflecting and recognize that that's where I was coming from. And I had to do what was best for Sienna and push all of us outside of our comfort zone. And it ended up being the best decision I've ever made. And so she did afternoons there for, I think we started that in like March, April, and May. And yeah, so we did that. And then in between that time is when I homeschooled her at the preschool and we beefed up on outpatient therapies. And it was just, kindergarten was, it was a traumatic year.
It sounds like it. But it sounds like you found a great fit, but now you have to worry about this great fit going away.
Yes, I know. It felt like so cruel. Like, oh my gosh, this is the perfect school. And then the teachers mentioned to me that they were considering closing it. And I was like, what? So then I started going to every public hearing and I got to know a lot of public education advocates, a lot of just community advocates and disability advocates. Here in Pennsylvania, we have a local task force. It's a state mandated organization that every school district has to have, and they meet monthly. So you meet with other parents who are in the district and you get to share experiences and make sure you have, and like they also give presentations on things about the district. And I remember listening to one of them, and I had no idea they had such an amazing transition to adulthood program, because so many people would just say to my husband and I, well, why don't you move to the suburbs? Like, why don't you move to the suburbs? You live in the city. Like like it's that simple. And my answer to that was, Sienna, if she's going to be an independent adult, the city is the best place for her. Like, it's the best place for her to be
Right.
comfortable. There's public transportation. There's a ton of group homes out here. There are so many great resources in the city. And the school district has amazing resources. They really, truly do. It's just, now money is becoming tight and they have to make really tough decisions. And as this has been going on, my backup plan when they finally pulled the trigger was going to be to file a complaint with the Office of Civil Rights. I had talked to quite a few government officials and they recommended that we do that. And then lo and behold, 7 of 12 offices closed. So, and the Philadelphia office closed. So,
Right. Right.
Yeah. So
that's one of the many maddening parts of what's going on right now, right? And this is one of the things I've been trying to, as much as I can, sound the alarm on. Like, there's a lot going on that's really undermining, to say the least, the disability community, parents, families, those who rely on support, both legally and in person, as you said.
Yes, absolutely. And it's even just so hard to keep up with it because there is so much happening, so much destruction happening on a daily basis. And it's really like you have to give yourself a mental break from it a little bit. Like I have tried to step back from social media, like since the girls started school a little bit. Like I just need to decompress for a little bit because there is so much to be outraged about. And you can only control what you can control. And that's why I start with my backyard and going to these public hearings, talking to our school board directors. And I joined the Democratic committee. I had a meeting this week and I was sharing with them all the school board directors' email addresses. I said, this is a neighborhood staple. This is a great, and like, the thing is, nobody knows the school is closing and the district wants it that way. So it's not getting enough attention.
They don't want it out there. They don't, they just kind of want to keep it under wraps and, hey, let's just quietly, do this and maybe no one will notice, or we're just going to leave us alone.
Yes. And the most they have done is in the summer, which I mean, that should just tell you, like they're doing it when parents are checked out, like the hearings that they have to hold to close the schools, like they're state mandated and they held them in the summer at unreasonable hours during the week. And so it was really hard getting people in our community to show up for that hearing and stand up for Fulton. But we had like 30 speakers, teachers, come out, and there's just so much good in this school. So I really, really, truly hope that something's got to give. It really does. Otherwise, they're going to turn into charter schools, and charter schools still will drain funding from the public school district, and like that's an endless, perpetual cycle until something changes. And I keep shouting that from the rooftops. There's a lot of nuance in the charter school funding formula here in Pennsylvania that is unfair, particularly in the special education funding formula. They get a lot of special education dollars, and they usually take the kids who have low needs, but they'll still get a high dollar amount for that. And the other thing is, like at Sienna's school, they have to spend the money designated for her on special education. Charter schools get that dollar amount and they can put new flower beds in, they can update the building, they can do whatever they want. Yes. So that is it's a double standard. And I get so frustrated when people are like, but charter schools are doing a better job. I'm like, yeah, because they have more money because they're taking it from the school districts. And that is impacting regular neighborhood public schools. And it's
And they can
just,
cherry pick the students too. I mean,
yes,
right? I mean, like it's kind of like gaming the system in the sense. I mean, it's kind of like, I mean, it's different, but it reminds me of like with some of the high school sports, the differences between here with private schools versus public schools. We get the private schools who can, recruit the players, and they can support them and get, actually give them scholarships. And they're like, oh, look what a great athletic program they have. Well, yeah, if you can pick,
yeah,
the best players and not just, go with supporting just the kids in your neighborhood like you're supposed to do. But yeah, whole different topic there.
yes, yes. And then we could get into vouchers too, which don't get me started on those.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like whatever happened to just public education and just supporting the kids and saying, look, we want to help them all succeed. Hey, I'm guessing you've noticed a real difference between working with administration and working with teachers, right? For me, that was one of the really tough aspects. My kids, I have 19-year-old twin boys, so we're now out of that realm for the most part, although Stone is technically still enrolled, still part of the local school district because they're paying for the private school that he's getting, another topic. But
Okay.
there were a lot of good-hearted teachers in the system. People I think were in it for the right system, for the right reason, I should say. But then you run into the administrative level, particularly at the district level, and it's a whole different ballgame.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, that definitely was eye-opening and interesting. I have felt like the teachers are aligned with me and they are on our side, and they honestly, I think truly, that there's a lot of parents who don't have the time that I do to advocate and push. So when I go into an IEP meeting and I'm prepared and I tell them what I want, like, it's refreshing to them. They enjoy it. They love that.
Yeah,
I'm
sure.
I'm asking for more. I'm asking about this technology. I'm asking about this curriculum. I'm showing them the research and how it works on kids with Down syndrome. And they loved that. And then administration in the district is a whole different ballgame and different conversation. And that's usually where the frustration comes in.
They
With
probably hate it. Like, oh no, this is a parent. She actually knows what she's talking about, and she
Yeah.
knows her rights, and she's pushing. She's pushing for these rights for her kid.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, my husband said, when we left the private school setting, in kindergarten and we went to the public school, someone had asked, "Oh, well, did they try anything to get you to stay?" And my husband laughed and he said, "No, they couldn't wait to get rid of her." And he pointed at me. I said, "Yeah, true. It's true. It was true because I was holding them accountable." So,
Well, that's a
yeah.
badge of honor if ever there was one. I think.
Yes, yes. And, throughout all this, my oldest daughter, who's 12, Haley, had a front row seat to all this. And she has definitely learned a lot watching the journey and the struggle and how hard it was to find a school for Sienna. And she, at the last public hearing, gave a testimony defending Fulton and talking about how much it's done for her sister. I was so proud of her for doing it. Because it's a very cold environment. Like, you go out on this, like, it's like almost like a balcony, and that there's a table at the bottom with all the board directors,
Oh
everybody staring
wow.
at you,
Yeah, that's not
administration.
intimidating,
Oh,
right?
yeah, exactly. And you have to push a button and the microphone is 3 minutes and it starts beeping when you have like 10 seconds left. So it was, yeah, it was definitely, but it was such a good experience for her. It
Oh,
really was. Yeah.
she sounds remarkable. Again, I follow your posts. I love that. I love the support that she provides, and that's a segue again towards kind of the topic you and I had talked about in
Yes.
advance,
Yes.
advocacy. And I want to talk about that moment you said at the kitchen sink. You said she asked you that question, right? And You had just said some kids only got into the program because their parents made a fuss. And she said, well, isn't that advocacy? So
Yes.
take it from there. Like what did that reveal to you?
So yes, Haley got selected to go into this program, and she didn't know if she wanted to do it or not. And her father and I told her what a great honor it was, and we broke down. We really got detailed on the criteria and why she got in, and how many kids were welcome to the program. And in hindsight, I probably should have held back on that, but I didn't. And then when she got into the program, she noticed that not all the kids met the qualifications, and there
Mm,
were more kids than had initially. So we were talking, and I said, "Oh," she said, "Well, how come?" And I said, "Oh, well, their parents probably made a fuss. What are you going to do?" And she said, well, if those parents think that their kid deserves to be in it, isn't that advocacy? And Haley always says some profound things to me that make me step back. And I was like, I had to really think about it. And I said, I can see how you would think that that is advocacy.
sure.
I can, because these parents are standing up for what they think their child deserves. But I said, I'm more likely to call it entitlement. And I said, entitlement means you're seeking special treatment. You're, in this case, asking someone to break the rules for you. You feel that you deserve this and you might not deserve it. And then we got into a conversation about, well, maybe they did deserve it and blah, blah, blah. And, I like that. A day later, we were at the Descendants Zombies concert. It was Sienna's first concert. And um, I had to, our seats were awful. They were nosebleeds. Sienna, she's mostly nonverbal. So when she turned and looked at me and said potty, I was like, oh, we got to book it. We
Yeah,
got it.
yeah, right.
Yes. Yes. And there were 40 steps. We were in a really rough section. So we run to the bathroom, and then we came back, and I'm at the top of the section is the ADA area. So I asked the usher, this is going to be rough for her going up and down these steps. Is it okay if we sit here? And he said, yeah. He said, yeah. He said, although, if someone reserved them ahead of time and they're running late and they come here, you'll have to move. And I said, yes, of course, of
Sure.
course. If
Yeah,
that
right.
happens,
Yeah, no
let me
problem.
know. Yes. And the usher was so nice, so kind. It was perfect. We were great. And then there was an intermission. And then I could hear this dad saying, my daughter has sensory issues, and why do they get to sit there? And, can we please sit there too? The lights are really getting to her. And I couldn't hear what the usher was saying, but the manner in which this father was speaking to him was totally unnecessary.
Mhm.
And Haley noticed it too. And, in the car on the way home, I was like, so that was not advocacy, that was entitlement. And that's another difference. I said, I don't deserve those seats. I mean, he was kind enough to let us sit there, but it's a responsibility asking for an accommodation, and you have to be prepared for it. You have to notify the venue ahead of time. I didn't have a right to those seats either. We just happened to get there. And I said, but that dad, for him to throw a scene and make a fuss and just assume that they should sit there without him making any phone call or preparation, that's entitlement. And it was a good example. And it just still got me thinking about do I do that? Are there times where I feel like I'm entitled to things? And it just got me thinking about so many different things, like you know what it's like when you go to a theme park, Disney World,
Yeah.
Universal, and in the beginning, it was when Sienna was little, and it was pre-COVID. It was so easy to get a disability pass. You just walked up, you explained the stroller was a wheelchair, they give you the tag, and there you go. And I don't know if it's a post-COVID world or what it is, but we were at Universal in the fall, and there was a line an hour long of people waiting to get interviewed about their disability pass. And I mean, we got to the front and they asked us so many questions. And I answered them honestly, and they handed us the pass and they said, this is what it does. And it didn't get us like to the front of the line. It got us like in an express line, like, and that was still a long line because a lot of people could buy express passes. And
Oh, okay. Yeah. So they
yeah,
basically upgraded you for free for kind of like, yeah.
yes. Which like, and my mom said, well, look at, we saw someone else with a disability get taken right to the front of the line. And my mom said, well, why doesn't she have that pass? And I said, Mom, I answered the questions honestly. And this is the pass that they gave us. So like, this is what it is. Let's see how she does with it. And like as the day went on, like she was completely overwhelmed from a sensory level. We had gone on the Despicable Me Minions ride at first, and it was her favorite ride. She's obsessed with Despicable Me and
That's
Minions.
great.
Yes. And like, I don't, as the day went on, we all had only gone on so many rides. She needed a break. We went into a gift shop, and it happened to be a gift shop that was attached to the end of the ride. And at the end of the ride, there's like a bubble machine and a little movie, and like the minions are there, and like a dance party, and you're like on camera. Well, she saw it and booked it over there, and she flopped to the ground and would not move. She
Mm.
absolutely would not move, and like just was shaking. And like Sienna doesn't cry. Like she's like, we call it mad sad, because she's like mad and she feels betrayed by her tears and she wipes them away. Like she's mad that she's upset. And it's so
Oh,
heartbreaking to
yeah.
watch. It really is. And I just sat there with her and held her for like 45 minutes, and people were like completely aware that we were on the ground and they just didn't care. Like I got stepped on a couple times.
My stone. My stone just woke up because, like I said, we're on the West Coast.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So he's been sleeping. He just got up. Hey, buddy. Happy. Yeah. I'm doing an early podcast. Yeah.
So people were they were just not being kind. Like we got like stepped on a couple times, and at that point my mom came up to me and she said, "Do you think it's time to ask for the other disability?"
Moms be
And
moms.
I was, yes. And I was like, okay, yeah, yeah, it is. So I went back there, and like everybody pays so much money to go to those things, and we spent
Yeah.
like 2 to 3 hours of our day like trying to figure this out. And it was just, that's not entitlement. Like that is absolutely advocacy. And I went back and I let them have it. I just let them have it. And I said, whatever magic words I need to say for you to give me this pass, I'm saying them. Like,
Yeah.
this is what happened. Like, and I took a picture of us. I was like, this is what just happened. And they were like, okay, you can have it. And the rest of our trip was better. But like, I was trying so hard not to be an entitled person. I was trying to follow the process, but like, where did that get me? That was hours wasted. And so and then like, I was like, should I have pushed harder in the beginning? And it's so hard to know at times. It really, truly is. There's these situations that come up. Like we have Medicaid because Pennsylvania is one of those states that, regardless of a family's income, you qualify for Medicaid, which
Right.
like,
Yeah.
if you know how much therapies cost, like we could not afford, we were getting EOB statements for what Medicaid was picking up from therapy when Sienna was 1, and they were $3,500 a week. So there's not a
Yeah.
lot of families that can afford that. So thankfully, Pennsylvania, there's only, I think, 12 states that do this. And Pennsylvania is one of them. And I have never taken that for granted. I really haven't. But you also get like a SNAP card, that's what they call it. And it comes with discounts to things like museums. And my husband in the beginning was really struggling with processing. We processed it in different ways and at different speeds. And
Sure.
he was in denial at times. And I remember us going to a museum and I pulled out the card and they were like, okay, it's $2 each, like, instead of $30. And he was like, why did you use that? And I said, because we have it. And he said, yeah, but we're not one of those families who needs that. Like, we could afford to pay for it. And I was like, because life is hard. And I think it's great that we get a break here. We have this. If you had a coupon, would you not use it because you
That's
can afford it? Like, it's
that's a
so
great
like,
analogy. And it's funny because I can relate to your husband. I mean, I've been in kind of both positions. I get that. Like I said, we qualified for, state disability services, when Stone was younger, and we'd get the statements, but we never did anything. I was like your husband. I'm like, that's for others. That's for the people who can't afford it. The poor people. We can, we're going to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps and we can do this and we'll make it work by gum. But you can't do it all. Like, again, like you said, there's a ton of support that's required. And the fact is, and I think you pointed this out too, I mean, we pay for this too. Like,
right.
you're not a freeloader if you're utilizing these government supported services. I mean, we all pay into it.
Absolutely. My dad, we had many tough conversations about this. And I finally showed him those EOB statements and I said, do you think we can afford this? And do you want me to do what's best for Sienna? Because we can't afford this. And if we didn't have Medicaid, she wouldn't get all the therapies that she's currently getting. Should I stop the therapies? And when I put it that way to him, I mean, he was conservative. We were aligned differently politically. That was a little bit of a struggle at times. But when I finally could explain to him that this was his granddaughter, like, this is what we're talking about. Like, put all of that aside. This is your granddaughter. I don't care what I have to do to get her what she needs and what's going to support her. Like, that is your judgment. And unfortunately, I feel like that's like the majority of our country. Like, they just don't understand the nuance of these situations and how people need Medicaid because the cost of healthcare is just completely unreasonable and crazy in this country. And I think people just want to make it a black and white issue, and it's not. It's just not.
It's
Medicaid
not.
is
No. I was just thinking as you're saying that, why is that? Yeah, I don't know if it's the majority. It's certainly a lot too many people. And you kind of have this attitude, I think, among too many that, like, oh, you should just, that's what insurance is for. Just get a good job and get good insurance, right? And that takes care of it. Like it's so easy to do for most people. Like you said, for some people, I mean, we're among those privileged that we have. My wife has a great job and, helps. She's the one who carries the weight for us financially and gives us the benefits and all those things. But even so, like, there's still a lot that's not covered. But again, we're in that minority. I mean, if you're a working class family or so many others who don't have those benefits, especially as they're being slashed too, right? Like, again, companies aren't, you haven't seen like companies pouring on the benefits of the last 10 years for the most part, unless you're executive level or, something like that, I think. But for most workers, they're not seeing like an increase in healthcare benefits.
now, if anything, I feel like it's gotten tighter. Yeah, we have our primary insurance is through my husband's work, and it's good insurance. It really is. But it doesn't cover everything that Sienna needs. Those therapies are lifelines. They make such a huge difference in Sienna's life, and they give her confidence, and it's just such a good thing for her. So his insurance, his primary insurance, allows you to have 20 therapies annually. So, it's like if someone like broke a bone and needed physical therapy for a couple, like, they're only thinking about it through that lens. And, that's
20's
not her life.
nothing.
No.
20's nothing. Excuse
Yeah.
me. I mean, yeah, that's nice, but
Yeah.
that's nothing.
We burned through that in 3 weeks.
I was gonna
And then
say, yeah, that's like a month maybe, or something,
yeah.
depending on how you set up your schedule.
Yes. Yes. So, with the potential impact on the Medicaid cuts, I've been on a lot of calls with local officials asking, in Pennsylvania, it's called the loophole program. And, they're going to have to make some tough choices coming up. The state legislators, they're going to have to cut things because they're getting less money, and they're the ones who are going to have to decide. But I've talked to a lot of experts, and they say, yeah, I wouldn't count on the loophole program being safe because it's not a necessity. You aren't the families with the most need. Like, they're probably going to put income limits on it moving forward.
Mm-mm.
And, we'll see what happens with that. But again, $3,500 a week. I mean, even if I started working right now, it's interesting. Uh, last year, I had a job that I had to, like our local Down Syndrome Association, I had served on the board for years, and they lost their executive director like a month before the Buddy Walk. And they just asked me if I would step into it. And I was like, okay, I'll do it. Like, I'll see how this is. I kind of missed working. I'll see how this works out. My husband travels during the week all the time.
Okay.
I don't know why I thought I could do this. So I tried, and I was like, I can't actually give Sienna everything she needs, even though she's in school full time. Like, being an advocate to a kid with a disability is a full time job. Like,
Well, being a
making sure that,
parent, yeah, being a
yeah,
parent,
being a
yeah,
parent.
right.
Yes. Yeah. It's just, and like, it's so funny. My girls have different pickup times. Like, I probably have 4 hours like to myself while they're at school. And I spend them, like, right now, what I'm doing while they're at school is taking a class on Gestalt language processing, because Sienna has been labeled as that. And I'm just trying to learn as much as possible so that we can hopefully get her talking, because she's 9 and I know she has so much to say. And I'm hoping this is the key to unlocking her voice. But it's not like, it's technical. It's like, it's really hard. I don't have like, it's all speech language therapists who are taking this class, and
Yeah,
I'm in
it's
there.
a whole different language. It's a whole different, yeah, field.
Yes, yes. And like, just even implementing a couple of the strategies this summer with her, like we changed the way her talker was set up, and like now it has phrases, and there's more like intonation, and like in different, like things have to sound sing-songy a little bit to resonate
Hmm.
with her. And there's phrases, and those phrases are like lines that she's memorized, whether it would be like a conversation she had with her sister that really made an impact, or like something from Despicable Me. Um, and contextually, they don't always apply. They
Right.
don't. So we have to like be checked into what's going on, and we have to write this down, and we have to track it. And like, she started using her talker more when we put the phrases in, and like the next stage would be her mitigating individual words out of those, like those scripts that she has memorized. So, but like, we really need to learn how to do that. And that's, it's work. It's always
It's a lot
work.
of
Like,
work. I'm just curious. I don't know if you've seen my posts about spelling to communicate, or if you're familiar with that, the spelling methodology.
I saw your post about, and I listened to one of your podcasts about how this was the key to getting Stone to talk. And
Yeah,
um
communicate,
I
unlocked him,
yes, yes. And
and
I find that so inspiring. I'm like, okay, like it can be done. Like it can be done. I'm not giving up.
well, I'm
But
bringing this
what
up because again, it's been more prevalent in the autism world, of course, which is where I'm familiar with, obviously. But through this journey, and through the podcast and others, I've had a chance to meet a couple other moms. One in particular, I did a podcast with her, Darcy, who has a son who's 21, I believe, Brady, Down syndrome, very similar. Again, wasn't able to communicate, had some speech, but she's like, she heard about it. She put him in the car and drove to San Diego where the practitioner was, and she became a practitioner herself. And anyway, she works specifically with Down syndrome families and spellers. So it might be something to look into. I'll be happy to kind of connect you guys later because, as you know, it's of course speech is kind of the goal. I mean, we live in kind of a speech driven world, but I think that the frustration that must be felt to have to know that from a cognitive standpoint, she's there, she's processing it, but to, just not be able to communicate the needs, the feelings, all these things. I keep saying over and over, like, I can't imagine it. I can't imagine being unable
Yeah.
to have this kind of conversation.
Yes. I mean, she's 9 now, and I am noticing that she is really noticing, like, the way that her sister interacts with her friends is different than the way she can interact with her friends.
Right.
And she's sad. Like, she gets sad about it. And I can look at her and know what she's thinking. Like, I know, and I know she understands everything. And it frustrates me too, because I feel like sometimes people talk about her in third person when she's sitting right there.
Yes.
And
Yes.
it,
Oh,
and I'm like, she understands everything you're saying.
she's
Don't
right
talk about
here.
it.
She's
Yeah.
right here. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. But I would love to be connected with that mom. That
Yeah.
sounds,
I'll be happy to do that. She's great. You'll love her. And, again, I'm sure you'll have a lot to talk about. But it's nice to know that there is that avenue, potentially as well. Cause you're right. Cause
yes,
you get to that age. And I remember when Stone was that age. And again, and now looking back as he's able to talk about it, it is, heartbreaking, for them. They're smart. They understand what's going on around them. They understand their limitations. Those are tough things to get through, but there's so much potential there, and so much that, you can unlock, give them a future, and give them and yourself hope. Anyway,
yes, absolutely. Yes. It just takes a little bit of research and work.
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. But that's kind of a great tip in terms of, again, reminding people to, um, talk, just talk to the kids, talk to everyone as you would an adult. Presume competence is something I talk about a lot, but we do have a segment, excuse me,
Mhm.
tip of the week. You came prepared. So we're going to play a little jingle and get your tip of the week.
Hey parents, gather around, it's time to speak. We're here with your tip of the week. Strategies and wisdom just for you. Autism parents, we know what you go through.
All right, it's time for our tip of the week. And this week, again, is not autism tip of the week. We'll call it Down syndrome tip of the week, or just Shannon's tip of the week. So what do you got for us,
Yeah.
Shannon?
So one tip that I have, that someone once told me was to make a daily communication log between the school and yourself, where you're tracking services and what happened in each class, so that you can talk about it. So Sienna brings that home. I know every period she had. I know what they worked on. It's written in notes, and that allows me to track and make sure she's getting her therapies as well. And, like, she's not getting shorted on her IEP. So it's a document I created, and I had it put in her IEP that it has to be filled out every single day. So, and there have been times where I've realized she has missed out on therapies. And if I wasn't, like, tracking it and staying on top of that, I wouldn't be able to hold the district accountable. So there's lots of good examples and templates online, but I would recommend getting a daily communication log for your kiddo.
That's awesome. That's a great tip. One of many. Again, looking back, I wish I had as a parent. Yeah, back in those days, because you're right. That's a great way to hold them accountable, and kind of hold yourself accountable too, right? To say, hey, let's
Yeah.
make sure we're getting what is needed there. Yeah, my brief tip of the week goes back to advocacy, and just remembering that advocacy comes in different forms and flavors. Yeah, like you said, some parents are able to fight with data and documents. Others show up, you make noise. Sometimes I kind of joke, from hockey standpoint, which I think you're a hockey fan, right? Or
Yes.
yeah, so
Yes.
sometimes you got to go to the penalty box, right? Sometimes you got to fight. Sometimes it's worth
Yes.
going to the
Yes.
penalty box. So it doesn't have
Yes.
to look like everyone else's. That's my tip. Advocacy comes, like I said, different shapes and sizes, but it's necessary, and it's important.
Yes. I think too, I have had to really choose my battles and be smart about that. I see some parents sometimes like making a fuss over things that I think are like really in the grand scheme of things, not a big deal. Like, and I think that if you're really going to hold the team accountable, make sure that it's something that your child really
That's
needs.
great.
And
Yeah.
yeah, because you don't want to waste that energy on something that's not important.
Yeah, and I think that's great. And having priorities in order. This kind of gets back to what we were talking about before, the difference between also advocacy and entitlement and choosing your battles. What's really important? What's something that's just a convenience versus really an accommodation um,
Right.
for someone?
Yes.
Think about
Yes.
it that way. All
Yes,
right.
exactly.
Our next segment, fact or fiction.
Get QuickTime ready, and here we go. This is Autism Fact or Fiction. We're breaking down what's real, what's rumor, and what might surprise you. Let's go.
All right. So fact or fiction. What do you got for us, Shannon?
Kids with Down syndrome are always happy.
That's great. That was mine as well. That's perfect.
Yes. I cannot express how irritating this is. And it's something like I hear daily from strangers. And I know everybody is well meaning when they say that. Like they'll just look at her and they sometimes don't know what to say and they smile and they say, "Oh, it must be so nice having a child that's happy all the time." And I'm just like,
It's just
you should see her after school at 5 o'clock. She's not happy. No, no, she's tired, exhausted, frustrated. Like, honestly, my kid Haley is always happy. Sienna is,
right.
she's a punk. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, that's just
So,
it's kind of unreal when you really break it down and think about it. But I guess that kind of shows the systemic bias we have against people with just different disabilities, right? Just not really understanding them as full humans with a full range of emotions, full range of complexities, full range, everything that makes us all human, right? And it's been broken down in these like simplistic stereotypes.
yes, absolutely. There are so many broad generalizations that get made about people with Down syndrome. And I like, it frustrates me at times because each person is different. Yes, they have Down syndrome, but like Sienna is also me. There are some traits of me that she has. There are some traits of her dad that she has. Like she's quiet, she's stoic, she's private. That's her dad. Um, yeah, and she's stubborn, persistent. That's me. There's so much to her that is more than Down syndrome. She's a person and she is unique and everybody is unique. A diagnosis is not who a person is.
Yeah, that's a great point. And it's something I still have to remind myself about too. When I think about and my role and also who Stone is, like you said, he's a person first who happens to be non-speaking autistic, but he's Stone Man. That's his nickname. He's first and foremost he's Stone Man and unique and incredible and for all the qualities that he has and has shown us over the years. And now it's just taking it to a whole new level. Now the one I'm really curious about is our parent confessions.
Morning routines can go astray. Found socks in the fridge one day. Laughter's the best remedy. Hey, we're just finding our own way. Mom, dad, confessions every week. Sharing joys and moments we seek. Honest tales that make us unique. Join the club, we're never meek.
All right. Well, this is our opportunity to again show our human side, just show that we are fallible human beings, even though being fierce advocates and all. But we've talked about parenting's hard. Parenting kids with special needs or disabilities raises a different level of challenges, and we're just trying to navigate our way through it. There's no there's no guidebook, right? You didn't buy the book of like, okay, here's what you have to do. But so
Yes.
we've made mistakes along the way, or realizations, and this is where I kind of like to share that with our audience. So what do you have, Shannon?
Um, yeah. So, my confession is, sometimes I let too much resentment of what I think Sienna should have access to and doesn't. And I take that in too much. And I have to own it at times because, like I said earlier, the juxtaposition between the two worlds of both my daughters, like, and I'll hear parents of typically developing kids complain about something. And I'm like, oh gosh, if only that was my biggest problem. And
Right.
it's hard not to like let that harden you and just make you angry all the time. And it's a struggle. It's a daily struggle for me. And I really have to check myself often and be like, you can't let resentment fill your heart. Like you're a different path. You're on a different path. And, it's a constant, it's a journey, it's always going, it's fluid. And I try and grow with it. And I have found like that the resentment is going out the back window a little bit as long as I keep myself in check and remind myself. And this past year has been really, really challenging for me. With everything that's happened politically. Like I have grown very resentful of the world around me and what Sienna doesn't have access to and what I think she deserves. And it's frustrating having to fight so hard for things that I think should just be basic.
Mhm.
Like activities right now is a big thing for her to participate in. And like we have to find spaces that welcome inclusion. And like we're reaching the stage where parents care so much about sports and they don't want like their kid sitting on the bench for a kid with a disability and then sometimes just, organizations are like, no, it's too hard. And they don't have to make accommodations or include her. And, I get frustrated of that. But, you know, we have found a couple spaces. Like there's a studio around us that she just started jazz and tap dance classes.
Oh, that's great.
Yes, and she loves it, absolutely loves it. And then we just found a cheer program that is for kiddos with disabilities. And one of my closest mom friends on this journey has a 9-year-old with Down syndrome, so they're going to do this together.
Oh,
Um,
perfect. That's great
yeah,
that you have that also
yes,
close by, that you have a friend at, someone that you can
yes,
lean on.
yes, she's my person. She's definitely my person. And you know, as much as the resentment is tough, like it also makes you have gratitude for so many small things that people take for granted too. So I try to really like have more gratitude than resentment, but some days I fail. True.
Yeah,
That's my confession.
you're a human. That's a great one. I appreciate that. I mean, again, that's one of the things I've seen in terms of what you're willing to share, that vulnerability. I think it's really important because, again, I think there's so many times we feel like we have to be brave. We have to put on you know, the tough act. Because again, we are fighting. It is a tough world out there that we have to deal with. But we have to also try to look for the positives, because there are a lot of positives. Sometimes we just have to look a little harder for them.
Yes, absolutely. Like, I wouldn't be talking to you right now. We wouldn't have connected if it weren't for this journey. Like, there's so much about this journey that I see now that I wouldn't have seen. And I am grateful that I get to grow.
Yeah, I think that's a wonderful perspective, and I share that as well. And I've talked about that too. Is I'm 1,000% the person, the man that I am, because of the journey, because of what I've had to go through, what we've gone through together, and meeting people. I mean, it's been one of the just true highlights. We're coming up on a year of doing this podcast and having the opportunity to connect with and talk with people like you, Shannon. It's really inspiring, and that helps fuel me and motivate me.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I really, really appreciate it. I was looking forward to this. especially since it's the first week of school. Like this was,
Good timing, good
yeah,
therapy.
absolutely.
And there's a lot to learn. Well, and we'll have to keep in touch and bring you back, because I know there'll be other topics. We're just kind of getting into things politically as well that we can talk to. It's really funny. I actually had a negative comment because I had the gall to bring up politics in a podcast earlier, and I guess that's something we can have a whole nother discussion with. It's kind of like
Oh yeah.
people think that you should just be talking about Down syndrome or autism, and like politics has nothing to do with it in terms of support. So it's mind boggling. But anyway, like I said,
Yes. Yeah.
it's crazy.
Yeah. It is crazy. Unfortunately, our lives are political. Politics impact our lives as parents of kids with disabilities. I mean, and I feel that every American should be. Yeah. Again, that could be a whole other podcast. You know how I feel.
I do, and I love that. No, just one last point on that. I guess that's just one of my biggest pet peeves, though, is particularly if you're a parent of a child with a disability, particularly if you have something to fight for. I see these statements of, "Oh, I just hate politics," or I don't want to get involved in politics. That's, all politicians are corrupt, blah blah blah, right? Like these throwaway statements. And it's just like, okay, so you're just gonna, accept things and just, like just kind of write it
Yeah.
off. Like you don't think that this isn't going to impact your child? What world are you living in? I don't know. I don't get it.
I don't either. And I get very frustrated. I think people want to put their head in the sand and act like everything's okay. But
Yeah.
I've truly done so much research on this. I talked to experts, policy experts in our state, and it's really nuanced and technical finding all these things out. And I just get frustrated. I think there's privilege and I think there's ignorance about a lot of these things. And unfortunately, we are so divided as a country that like issues that used to be so nonpartisan, like disability policy used to be completely nonpartisan. And that's how it always has been. I've gone to legislative meetings. We have a disability summit here in Pennsylvania where legislators come from both sides of the aisle and they talk and they promote bills and they're together. And like through the years, I've seen a difference in that. And it's really just so frustrating that disability policy has become political. And I'm just hoping that we can undo some of the damage that's already been done and prevent some more damage from being done. But we'll see.
In the meantime, we'll do what we can do, right? Which is just raise awareness, sound the alarms as best we can, try to educate those who are open to being educated, who want to learn about the issues. And if and when we can make an opportunity to elect leaders who actually do care and will impact policy in a positive way, we'll do that too.
Yes, absolutely. And, I also tell everyone, like, you can start with politics in your backyard. Pay attention to school board races.
Yeah.
Yes. Get to know your city council person, get to know your county council person. Like there are so many legislators in your backyard who you could interact with on a daily basis. Like right now, the gas lines are being replaced on my street. And, I called my city council person because the water lines are supposed to be replaced too. Like, okay, well, the street's ripped up. Shouldn't they both be doing that at the same time? Wouldn't it make more sense? And I got a response. Like there's, if you engage with your leaders, they will get back to you. And, it's our job, even as citizens, just to hold them accountable. They got elected for a reason. Make sure they're doing their jobs. Yes.
I've got a great example of that as well. And then we'll sign off. But we were going through, since Stone turned 18, we had to go through the Social Security disability process to get him approved and applied for and approved. And again, he's non-speaking, he has epilepsy, seizure, all this stuff, right? We went through this long process and initially it was denied. And I was just like, what in the actual hell? Like, are you talking about? So I went through the appeal process, but then, a couple of people reached out. They're like, well, have you told your senators, reach out to the senators or Congress office? And kind of going back, and then again, probably your husband and I are cut from the same cloth. As like, you're like, no, I'm not. I didn't do that because I'm gonna do it myself. There's that fierce stubbornness, independence, which is can be a problem at times. We'll just say. But anyway, so I did reach out. Actually, long story short, in our case, Senator Patty Murray, her office reached out, told me exactly what I had to do. There was some documentation provided. They followed up. Lo and behold, got a call from Social Security office saying, "Oh, guess what? He's been approved and funds were released. It's all good." So it just goes to show, to your point, Shannon, engage. Don't just bitch. Engage. I mean, these are people.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I feel like so many people think that their voice isn't powerful and nobody's listening to them. And like, if we collectively all think that, then
You're
nothing
right.
will
Yeah, then
happen.
you'll be right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll turn out to be right.
Yes.
Well, like I said, we could talk on and on, but unfortunately, we have to put a wrap on. So again, Shannon, thank you. Thanks for being so brave, being so bold, putting your words into action. I'm going to keep following you. We're going to make connections and we're going to keep talking. So if you're in that space right now asking, if this is the right move, am I asking too much or not enough? You're not alone. Keep learning, keep leaning in, keep adjusting, keep advocating, and reach out to me, david.kaufer@hey.com or davidkaufer.com. We'll catch you next time.